The new ultra legendary rarity that is going to get released should scare you. This rarity creates more problems than it solves and indirectly outlines other crucial parts of Brawl Stars that are getting jeopardized. But before I begin, note that the only information I have right now is the Brawl Talk. I'm not affiliated with Supercell, and even though I'm basing my argument on only what was briefly presented in an update overview, I think there's still some points that I will bring up in this video worth considering. The main problem with this new rarity is that it disregards the sheer amount of epics and mythics that are in the game. After the removal of the chromatic rarity, and if you don't know what that is, just know that the majority of the 21 brawlers in this rarity were dispersed into epic and mythic rarities. And although this wasn't inherently a problem at first when announced, the fact that most brawlers released after chromatics were epics and mythics, it creates an inflation of brawlers in these rarities. And it makes sense. Rare and super rare brawlers are way too easy to get, and their mechanic can only be so complex to generate hyper interest in that brawler. Take the last super rare release so far, Gus, for example. His mechanics are a single shot projectile with a shield that's super, but also a meter on top that summons ghosts. Compare this with Shade, which even though this brawler fell off, the mechanic of going through walls was something unique that was brought into the game, as well as the critical hit, deeming it enough to be an epic brawler. And obviously on the other side of the spectrum, releasing a bunch of legendaries in the update would probably not be the best idea. A second and probably the more valid reason is money, let's be honest. Now I don't want to be like r/Brawl Stars and kind of dismiss features into the game as simply a mean of simple monetary gain, but I believe it's still a partial reason. Designers have to get paid, and we already know there are early access bundles for new brawlers, which caters towards the more hardcore Brawl Stars player. Brawl Stars has an excuse to charge more money if the rarity is higher. Remember that the way Brawl Stars assigns a rarity to a brawler is based on its complexity and mechanic. The reason why many players want a rarity between Mythic and Legendary was A, the major credit difference between the rarities, B, the fact that some brawlers have mechanics that are a bit more than Mythic but less than Legendary, if you know what I'm trying to say, and C, alleviate some of that inflation found in the Epic and Mythic rarity range. Other players also wanted a rarity between Epic and Mythic, which also makes sense for similar reasons, and also that this would kind of pave a way for slightly quicker progression. But the fact that Brawl Stars creates a new ultra legendary rarity is flawed, given that it doesn't fix any of this. It just adds another barrier to progressing your account, and as of right now I don't know how much credits it will be, but given the credit prices for each of the rarities, let's assume 5,000, and that's me being generous, and obviously that's a lot. And you probably don't need an explanation on why this nerfs progression, and so far, I don't know if Brawl Stars will compensate for this nerf. Well, yeah, but we know that there will be a supposed gacha system coming to the game soon to counter this, and I feel like this also highlights something important. The game actively relies on the RNG and basically loot box systems for progression. And I'm saying basically because technically it's not to the extent of mega boxes, but I'd argue it still makes up a lot of the progression, and this honestly makes it hard to judge whether we are actually getting a progression buff. Someone probably has done the math already, but does the loss of Club League and previous pathways of progression countered by the new pathways like community events? Just from my eyes and experience, I think so. But due to the release of almost all the hypercharges and constant release of high rarity brawlers at this point, I believe there should be at least some buff in my opinion, which I don't think was mentioned in this Brawl Talk. We got like a sushi event, which I feel like will kind of have the same progression rate as other previous events like SpongeBob or Angels and Demons. But once again, all speculation. I'm recording this after Brawl Talk, so I'm not sure, so take this with a grain of salt. And yes, for now, only one ultra legendary brawler per year, which I'm glad, but it's still a sizable nerf. Does this mean there will be less legendary brawlers released every year now? Legendary brawlers were originally like ultra legendary brawlers. There were a limited amount of legendaries in the game, and at that time all of them were considered to have very unique skill sets. But as the game got more complex, it basically got saturated. So what happens later down the line? Are they going to be pro brawlers next? How much is Brawl Stars willing to compensate their game to appeal to their now ever growing audience for fixing much of the problems and bugs that have been in the game for years? When will they address a lot of these $10 problems? When will they address the rush cosmetics and inconsistencies throughout the game? And although they try to do this with every update just kind of adds more of these $10 problems, so in the end it kind of neutralizes. I hope that there can be an update in the future that addresses many of the quality of life things before going to the next big endeavor in the future. I don't mean to bash or mean to be one of those guys who complain about every update and claim that the company's greedy, because Brawl Stars is a great game and we already know that they're willing to actively listen to the community, right? So I really hope I was able to get my points across with this. Let me know what you think about the Brawl Talk. See you in the next one.
Greedy self?